PEDRO Neto Transfer Saga. Why Chelsea are refusing to lower their price for Manchester City. The future of Pedro Neto has suddenly become one of the most interesting transfer stories surrounding Chelsea and Manchester City, and the latest development could make this deal much more complicated than many fans expected. Manchester City have made their interest in the Portuguese winger clear, with reports of direct contact between the club and Neto's representatives. But while City appear interested in making the move happen, Chelsea are sending an equally strong message. If Manchester City want Pedro Neto, they are going to have to pay Chelsea's price. According to Fabrizio Romano, there is currently a significant difference between how Manchester City and Chelsea value the player. And perhaps even more importantly, Chelsea have no intention of reducing their demands for the Portuguese international. That immediately raises a huge question. Why are Chelsea refusing to lower their valuation? And why are Manchester City so interested in a player Chelsea apparently don't even need to sell? To understand this situation, we have to look at the bigger picture. Pedro Neto joined Chelsea from Wolverhampton Wanderers in August 2024 in a deal reported at around £51.3 million initially, with additional potential bonuses taking the package higher. Chelsea therefore have a significant financial investment in the player already. Since arriving at Stamford Bridge, Neto has shown flashes of exactly why Chelsea were prepared to spend that kind of money on him. His pace, ability to attack space, versatility and experience in the Premier League make him a valuable attacking option. And that is precisely why Chelsea are not simply treating him like a player they need to get rid of. Chelsea's position appears to be straightforward. If Manchester City really want Pedro Neto, they must meet the club's valuation. Chelsea are not actively desperate to sell him. That changes the entire negotiation. When a club desperately needs to sell a player, the buying club often has the advantage. They can wait, negotiate aggressively, and attempt to force the price down. But this situation is different. Chelsea can simply keep Neto. That gives the London club leverage, and Manchester City know it. The interesting part of this story is that Manchester City's interest is not coming out of nowhere. Neto has a connection with Enzo Maresca, who previously worked with him at Chelsea and is now Manchester City's manager. Recent reporting has suggested that Maresca is keen on the possibility of being reunited with Neto. That relationship could be one of the reasons this transfer has developed so quickly. Maresca already knows Neto's qualities. He knows how the winger operates. He knows what Neto can offer in possession and in transition. And perhaps most importantly, he knows how Neto can fit into his tactical ideas. From Manchester City's perspective, that familiarity can make a player much more attractive. But there is another major factor. Manchester City's interest appears to be connected to the club's changing options on the wings. Reports have indicated that Neto could become a more serious target depending on what happens with Savinho, while Manchester City have also been monitoring other attacking possibilities. That means Neto may not simply be a random transfer target. He could become part of a larger restructuring of Manchester City's attacking options. And that makes Chelsea's position even more interesting. Because if City believe Neto is the right player for their squad, they may eventually have to decide whether he is worth paying Chelsea's asking price. That is where the valuation battle comes in. Chelsea reportedly value Neto around the £70 million region, while other reports have suggested figures around £75 million or even approximately €80 million. The exact final fee remains uncertain, and it is important not to treat every reported figure as an agreed price. But the broader point is clear. Chelsea believe Neto is worth significantly more than Manchester City currently appear willing to pay. And Chelsea are not backing down. This is not simply about the difference between two numbers. It is about how both clubs view the player. Manchester City are asking themselves, how much is Pedro Neto worth to us? Chelsea are asking a slightly different question. How much would it take for us to willingly give up Pedro Neto? Those are two completely different calculations. For Manchester City, Neto is a potential acquisition. For Chelsea, he is already part of the squad. That gives Chelsea an advantage. There is also the Premier League factor. When a club sells an important player to another Premier League rival, it has to consider what that player could do against them. Chelsea would potentially be strengthening Manchester City. If Neto joins City and performs at a high level against Chelsea, supporters could understandably ask whether the club made a mistake by allowing him to leave for too little money. That is another reason why Chelsea may demand a premium. If City want one of Chelsea's established attacking players, the price has to reflect the fact that Chelsea are losing a player while potentially strengthening a direct competitor. And this is where the situation becomes fascinating. Chelsea don't necessarily have to say yes. They can simply say no. If Manchester City refuse to meet the valuation, Neto remains a Chelsea player. That possibility cannot be ignored. In fact, the latest reports suggest Chelsea are comfortable with exactly that scenario. The club's stance appears to be that they will not reduce their demands simply because Manchester City are interested. So what happens next? There are several possibilities. The first is that Manchester City increase their offer. If Pep Guardiola's side, or more accurately Maresca's City, decide that Neto is a priority, they could eventually move closer to Chelsea's valuation. At that point, negotiations could accelerate rapidly. Football transfers can change very quickly when the buying club decides that a particular player is worth the money. The second possibility is that Manchester City walk away. City have other options. They don't have to accept Chelsea's valuation. If their internal assessment says Neto isn't worth the amount Chelsea are demanding, they could simply move on to another target. That would leave Neto at Chelsea. And the third possibility may be the most interesting. Negotiations could continue for weeks while both clubs wait for the other side to compromise. Chelsea could maintain their asking price. City could continue trying to negotiate. And Neto could find himself caught in the middle of a transfer battle that depends as much on club valuations as it does on his footballing ability. There is another element Chelsea supporters will be watching closely: Neto's role at Stamford Bridge. If Chelsea's attacking options continue to change, competition for places could become intense. But that doesn't automatically mean Neto has to leave. Competition can actually make Chelsea stronger. A squad with several quality attacking options gives the manager flexibility throughout a long season, and Neto offers qualities that can be difficult to replace. His ability to provide speed and attacking movement can give Chelsea a different dimension. That is why selling him for a fee Chelsea consider insufficient would make little sense. Chelsea already spent heavily to bring him to Stamford Bridge. The club therefore has to decide whether the money offered by City would be enough to justify losing him. And right now, the answer appears to be no. That is perhaps the biggest takeaway from the latest development. This isn't a situation where Chelsea are desperately trying to find a buyer for Pedro Neto. It is almost the opposite. Manchester City are interested. Chelsea know City are interested. But Chelsea are effectively saying, if you want him, meet our valuation. That puts the pressure back on Manchester City. And now the question becomes whether City are prepared to pay the premium. There is also an interesting emotional element to the story because of Maresca. Maresca left Chelsea and is now at Manchester City, and the possibility of him taking one of his former Chelsea players with him adds another layer to the transfer saga. For Chelsea supporters, that could make the situation particularly frustrating. But ultimately, football transfers are business decisions. Chelsea have to protect the value of their squad. Manchester City have to decide how much they are willing to invest. And Pedro Neto has to wait and see where his future lies. At this moment, there is no guarantee that the transfer will happen. There is no confirmed agreement between the clubs. And Chelsea's refusal to reduce their demands means Manchester City still have a significant obstacle to overcome. The important phrase here is valuation gap. It means both clubs currently see the same player differently. Manchester City see a player they want. Chelsea see a player they are perfectly comfortable keeping unless the right offer arrives. And when those two positions collide, the club with less urgency usually has more negotiating power. Right now, that appears to be Chelsea. So will Pedro Neto actually leave Stamford Bridge for Manchester City? It is possible. Manchester City have shown enough interest to make this a genuine transfer story. But Chelsea's latest stance means City will probably have to make a serious financial commitment if they want to change the situation. And that is where this transfer saga could become very interesting. If City increase their offer and approach Chelsea's valuation, we could suddenly see negotiations move quickly. If they refuse, Chelsea can keep Neto and move forward with him as part of their squad. For now, Chelsea appear to be standing firm. Pedro Neto remains a Chelsea player. Manchester City remain interested. And the gap between what City want to pay and what Chelsea want to receive remains the biggest obstacle standing between the Portuguese winger and a possible move to the Etihad. The message from Chelsea is clear. They are not giving Pedro Neto away. If Manchester City want him, they will have to pay for him. And until that happens, Chelsea have little reason to change their position. So the real question isn't simply whether Manchester City want Pedro Neto. We already know they do. The real question is this: how badly do Manchester City want him? Because Chelsea have already made their position clear. They are not lowering the price. Now the ball is in Manchester City's court.